Rise of the Eco-Guards. Stand on guard with me. Truly Canadian as Captain Canada. Changing of the climates. Part 1. Hello, and welcome back to the Rise of the Eco-Guards. Stand on guard with me channel. In this video series of Truly Canadian as Captain Canada. Changing of the climates. I'll delve into some more subject matters that many are confused about, but are also being manipulated into believing is an accurate assessment by many confused politicians, business peoples, and even those considered by their own right to be economists, bankers, and elitists, whom are manipulating peoples and nations with their own flawed excuses for doing what they are attempting and in some cases successfully perpetrating upon humanity. For most people are confused about what many claim to be climate change, but are also not known as the complete suppression of peoples and nations, their freedoms, true liberties, and abilities to govern themselves. What is real climate change? How can we stop it? And should we even try? And is there any hope for humanity's future because of what some believe is a greater CO2 alteration that's causing an intense climate change, which according to those bureaucrats, politicians, and elitists threatens all of humanity? When in fact the real threats are truly man-made and are from sources that would be seen as pure evil, if they were not cloaked within their thin disguises that blind the masses of peoples and nations through their manipulations of all the peoples, through their mainstream media propagandas that are bought and paid for with all the taxpayer funds that they wrongfully attain from all our governments and societies, as they also want to be seen or come off as being humanity's saviors when nothing could be further from any truth. Over the last 40-plus years, besides just attempting at living life and raising a family of my own, I've also dedicated my being and autodidactically studied, learned, and been trained within a great deal of many types of principles as it concerns our ecologies, but also as it relates to our economies, as well as proper eco-based educational principles, all intended to help humanity find and make real, innovative eco-based solutions. And when I was much younger, I physically protested in public and advocated for real environmental concerns and corrections, some with great successes and others with limited achievements, and even my own types of failures, and have also done a lot through several private not-for-profit organizations that I founded in the 1980s and 90s that are still limitedly active in order to correct many truly devastating consequences of unchecked businesses and governments that would sooner flush those out with our clean waters and then bury everything under the ground to never see the light of day. I've also learned a great deal about what is also transpiring in this world as it relates to a great many people of great wealth, known or seen by many normal individuals as people that think they are elitist, that don't want all of you knowing or exploring those possibilities and truths. But truly understand, not all wealthy peoples are to blame, just a greater portion. And truthfully, if you look closely, you'll know who they are by their attitudes and actions. But also comprehend this. Many of them have been deceived by groups of very influential individuals and con men whom have always hated most of mankind. So in this expressive and somewhat lengthy video, I'll articulate my somewhat limited and different beliefs and great perceptual comprehensions on these subject matters and how humanity could begin to truly deal with all of it in a proper manner without freaking out or causing the great climate anxieties that are occurring to all our younger generations of our peoples that all need their hopes and dreams restored, and those abilities or possibilities to attain their power of such given back to them. All because some elitist and influenced politicians of ill repute want to be able to blind everyone to what they are conducting, which is the complete suppression of the masses of peoples, while they gain further and further riches, whom they also see as their slaves, but also as they constantly attempt to remove the limited freedoms that were created and enshrined within many of our country's constitutions. But this was achieved by our forefathers or forebearers to truly prevent such actions by these types of very sick, immoral, moronic, perverted sycophants, imps for short. The question is this: what will any of us do about it? Without causing revolutions and civil wars that would surely make things far worse, not only for us, but also towards our environment and climate, for both of these are different but still linked. Well, here's part of what I'll do, but it won't end here with my uniquely perspective views. According to a great many scientists of renowned merits, climate change has been somewhat analyzed, to a limited degree, over the last 40 to 50 years or so, mostly because our sciences are still in their infant stages, and that has also been partly determined to be the effects of a great many factors, as can be seen within the scientific breakdown into layman's terms, found in the novel entitled Unsettled by Dr. Stephen Kunin, a world-renowned professional in his own right, whom has served with distinction several past presidents of the United States of America, for he has taken these types of scientific consensus from the last 21 years of over 2,100 scientists and made those proper accurate determinations and made them better and evenly stated in a manner that most people can understand, that are now attempted at being highly suppressed by those elitist and mainstream media organizations. One of those factors is human-related causes, such as the expulsions of gases into our atmospheres. Like CO2, methane, and CFCs, that many of these so-called elitist and government types all blame, but also state that the internal combustion engines in motor vehicles and cow farts are completely causing climate change, when nothing could be further from the truth. As they fly around the world in their private jets, spewing greater and greater amounts of high-altitude expulsions of CO2 and worse into our upper atmospheres. And they do this to push their agendas, but also their Great Reset and net zero emissions get-rich schemes, upon all the world's peoples and societies, and of course their own interest in all business fields, which is truly just a joke, that in and of itself is not really funny. And let's not forget those elements that have been proven that some claim are being sprayed or spewed out by high-altitude aircraft, some by manipulative designs, in order to geoengineer our climate, and some by the manners in which those vehicles operate. But some people of highly educated means state could be for far more nefarious reasons, as well as the many sulfur-based gases being expelled by natural and unnatural sources, such as volcanic activity and coal-burning power generation facilities, which are also causing some contributing factors that some of these elitists are heavily invested in. One of particular note, Mr. Mark Carney. Yeah, that's right, the net zero advocate that attempt to bully companies into complying with those attributes and goals of that agenda, but whom, in my opinion, has also wrongfully attained the leadership of the Canadian Liberal Party and is being touted as Canada's next Prime Minister, when nothing could be further from the truth, for he has to be a sitting elected member of Parliament to truly attain that status. And I know this to be true, mostly because of those rules, but also because I'm a former politician and I made it my business to know these things. Anyhow, back onto where I was when speaking about those volcanic activities and the fact that those factors are also having some limited interactions with the long-term projection of climate and are only causing slight negative outcomes in the overall scheme of things, at least so far. And to be factual, we are very lucky of late, for there were volcanic eruptions in the past which caused greater impacts upon humanity, but that's part of history now. But if you truly want to know about those, look them up on the internet and educate yourselves. That said, the complexities of all these human-made or even natural factors are beyond anything that any type of computer modeling can truly determine, and that includes quantum-based systems. And that's because the input data is not complete, for many scientists have all admittedly indicated that we really don't understand much as it relates to our world or all the complex natures or manners of all the things that would be required to come to any real determinations. But also understand that's partly attributed to the fact that a greater portion of scientists truly refuse to see one of the sources of information as factual, thereby not using those truths and finding the facts that could truly make great differences in their analysis, diagnosis, and better determinations. But you know what's interesting about those denied informational inputs? Eventually, over time, those facts that they refuse to acknowledge are later proven as very accurate. And let's be clear about this, that information comes from the many ancient spiritual books found throughout the world. While on the other hand, a greater cause is not even being addressed or considered, but is being used as a source for perpetuating further harm, and not necessarily towards our ecological climate, but towards humanity. And that source just happens to be all the major cities upon the earth, whether they are filled with people or not. You know, like those types of abandoned cities more recently being constructed and seen in China, or all those very large cities that the World Economic Forum and the United Nations want to turn into segmented smaller zones as 15-minute cities within cities. But also truly understand that prior to the 1940s, the magnitude of such cities was nowhere near to what they are now, and those effects on our climate have grown in relativity to those growing cities. For these major places, filled with concrete, asphalt, and steel, known as cities, all work or act as great heat sinks that help alter the upper atmospheres on a more regular basis, including at night, when the sun's energies have naturally started to dissipate in those places on the surfaces all around the world. For these concrete places push greater amounts of heat up, even at night, when the normal atmospheres would be in its resting stage. And although heat from these places is not the same as some destructive gases that have the potentials to greatly affect our ozone layers, they do contribute greatly to the expansion of the atmospheric zones and do cause a stretching of sorts at those layered areas or points. But they also do contribute to surface CO2 that then climb those major high-rise buildings, thereby venting those gases of a sort into our upper atmospheric zones, where it then makes it very difficult for the world's plant life to absorb or convert those into useful and less harmful elements. And these contributing factors are very much changing our upper atmospheres to a warmer state that will inevitably be seen as contributing to changing weather patterns that many say is climate change, when true climate change is measured in the long, not the near term. Whether our governments and other authorities want to believe it or not, or whether they'll continue to deny those facts, those proofs will begin to be analyzed and diagnosed to a greater degree once the scientific community begins to comprehend what I'm expressing. And if they choose to not release those findings, that's completely up to them, for they are the ones attaining all the funding that should allow for those analysis and proofs to be shown to all our public sectors. But many governments, politicians, and even influential business executives, known as the elitists, will hold that information back, or even manipulate such to their advantage and use it against the public, all to acquire further financial gains or further perpetuations of their agendas. For when you combine those many factors and elements together, they force a great change in not only our atmospherics, but do also begin to alter the surface of the planet. For a warmer upper atmosphere translates into more intense hailstorms and intense rainfalls, thereby causing crop and property damages and greater flooding events that cause erosions upon the surface, but also cause the mass displacements of peoples and structures that society relies upon as shelters and homes, and so much more. And let's not forget all the air conditioning that's being used in these areas, for those are also adding great sums of unnatural heat. Now also understand that these excessive rainfalls cause less cloud covers in certain areas because those major rain events drain the upper atmospheres of those vaporous elements, while others are just inundated with vast quantities of rains. And this also causes drier areas to then retain natural fuels such as dead grasses and trees that then are struck by lightning strikes and burn with more intensity than in previous decades. Now, speaking about the surface of our planet, it's also been noted and determined by many scientists that have seen a great many recent satellite surface scans of our world. And they have also determined that we are beginning to see the extensive portions of the last ice age coming to fruition. In other words, we are finally nearing the complete ice age termination event that has been known would transpire. For such an event takes thousands of years to complete. And that's the greater reason that Canada's upper north regions, once covered in ice year-round, have begun to open up in the spring, summer, and fall seasons. You know, those areas in the upper North Americas known as the Northwest Passage. Also understand this. That's also the reason that many scientists are perplexed about the recent major releases of great sums of methane that are now showing up in satellite scans and ground analyses. But they can't clue into why. Well, I just told you part of the reasons why, but there are more. For when mankind buries their garbage into the ground, they create a place where when that ground gets hotter and hotter, because of increasing natural and unnatural temperatures, produces a lot more methane, but also other mixed gases that have not even been determined by science. Everyone truly needs to understand what these elitists are partly and really up to. And if you wonder what I mean by elitist, it's those people that believe or think they are better than any one of you. But everyone really also needs to comprehend this. They are attempting at cementing their names in the history books so that they will not be forgotten. Ask yourselves this, or should I say, did you know after you die that it will only be 2 generations removed before most people forget who or what you really stood for or the type of person you were? The only ones' names that are remembered are those like Christ Jesus, Gandhi, Muhammad, Hitler, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Winston Churchill, and all the others that made great impacts upon peoples in the world. And really, is that a good reason to get involved within certain organizations or even politics? I say, no. Stand for our God first, stand for your real morals, then stand for your peoples and your country, and everything will work out, or it won't. Who really cares except you? As for those liars, thieves, and killers of people and humanity, their place in eternity has already been ordained, and there's no escape, at least for those that have great egos and will not truly repent while they are given the opportunity here upon the earth. Besides, if you're true to our God and your real beliefs, and you truly work towards positive changes, your names are written in the book that matters within eternity. As for everything else, live, love, and be happy, at least as much as you can, within these ancient beast systems that all those elitists push to control and maintain. And fear not, all their bullshit alter climate change and other great propagandas that they are spreading throughout the world. For those of us that truly love you, are here with you in your times of need, and we really understand what they are pushing upon all of yous. Now, I'll leave off at this point, and when I return in the next of this series, known as Truly Canadian as Captain Canada, Changing of the Climates, Part 2. We'll delve into the remainder of what are many of the causes of factual climate change, but also just some of the innovative eco-based solutions that I truly believe need to be achieved in order that humanity may thrive in this world while living exceptional lives, with all our hopes for ourselves and our children's, and even their children's possible dreams. Until then, respect each other as much as you can, work together in as much harmony as you can, and keep it clean.